Oh, What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk about Call of Duty 3, released in 2006 for the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Wii, Xbox, and Xbox 360. Now, keeping with tradition, we have to ask, what exactly is Call of Duty 3? And basically, it is a World War II first-person shooter taking place shortly after D-Day in northwestern France in 1944. As with most World War II first-person shooters, we play as the Americans. However, in Call of Duty, we also get to take on roles as Canadians, British, and Polish soldiers. This works as a great way to mix things up, as well as provide an alternative perspective to the European theater of war during World War II. Let's talk about the gameplay. The game feels like every other modern Call of Duty. As you get shot, your eyes bleed red like some sort of exotic lizard, and you either regenerate your health after a short period of time, or you go extinct, unless you're Huxley. He's literally immortal. One thing I really enjoy about Call of Duty 3 is that it uses a mix of various levels, including vehicle gameplay, to keep things interesting. The tank levels are a great time, but trust me though, the Jeep levels are a blast. One thing I really didn't enjoy about Call of Duty 3 on the PlayStation 3 was the lack of optimization. When you're playing this game and you go to dump your entire magazine into some guy, and the frame rate just goes into the floor, you can't help but miss your shots and wonder what the heck is going on. Typically, a developer on the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 would be given 2 to 3 years to develop a really well-polished product. But in the case of Call of Duty 3, it's rumored that Treyarch was only given 8 months to develop the game, and my god does it show, this game is so rough around the edges. I mean, at least I never had enemies teleport right in front of me. No, wait, that definitely happened. Maybe it was just me, but when I played through the PlayStation 3 version of the game, I think the lighting effects were just a little bit off. One thing that I did like about Call of Duty 3 was that you get a decent mix of weapons introduced from level to level, which keeps things interesting. Let's talk about the weapons. Call of Duty 3 allows you to use 3 different submachine guns. The first is the MP40, the second is the Sten Mark II, and lastly there's the Thompson submachine gun. Out of the 3, my favorite is the MP40. The Sten Mark II is really good though. And I don't know why, but the accuracy on the Thompson in this game is terrible, which makes no sense because in World at War, the gun is amazing. The game also features a single pump action shotgun, and for what it is, it gets the job done. We also have access to 3 bolt action rifles. The first is the Lee Enfield No. 4, the second is the 1903 Springfield, and the last one is the Kar 98K. All 3 rifles do a great job, but if I had to choose one of the 3, it would have to be the Springfield, because the scope is amazing. There's also 2 semi-automatic rifles. There's the classic M1 Garand, and then there's the Gewehr 43. Both of these rifles perform very well, but if I had to choose one, everyone takes the Garand. There are also 2 fully automatic rifles in the game. There's the Sturmgewehr 44 and the FG 42. Both of these rifles perform really well, but the Sturmgewehr for myself is the best gun in the entire game. It's accurate, it has a 30-round clip, it's powerful, and you move quickly with it. The game also gives us access to various machine guns as we play through the campaign. The first one we get to see is the Browning automatic rifle, and it's very good, I really enjoy it, but the FOV looks really weird. Next we have the Browning M1919A6. You see it twice in the campaign, but really you only get to use it once, which I didn't like. Then there's the Browning M2 HB 50 caliber. I really like this gun, but you only get to use it for 1 minute during a short ride along, which pissed me off. We also get access to dual mounted Vickers K machine guns on the SAS Jeep levels. These guns are really cool, however you only get to use them maybe once or twice throughout the campaign. Then after that there's 3 machine guns we have to look at, and all 3 of these are amazing. There's the Bren, the MG34, and MG42. Now with the MG42, I really didn't like that it's only mounted in the game. You can't carry it around. The MG34 is a great gun on its own, but you can only shoot it accurately when you're using the bipod against a surface. Also, the reload animation is terrible. If you've ever used this gun in real life, and you go to reload it the way they show it, where you take the drum off, put a new drum on, but don't refeed the belt into the feed paw, it's not going to work. You're going to have a 30-pound paperweight. After that, it's a really weird mishmash of weapons in the game. There's 2 bazookas, the M9A1 bazooka, which you only get to use in the last 5 minutes in the game, which is garbage, and then there's the Panzerschreck, which you get to use probably 3 or 4 times throughout the game. They also give you access to a mortar a couple times throughout the campaign, but you can move the aiming reticle by twirling the analog sticks, and it felt really freaking weird for me. I didn't like that. They also use this control scheme on the Pak-43 artillery cannon near the end of the game, and it really hits home how hard it is to aim with this control scheme. Twirling the sticks and trying to get the aim just right is terrible. We also get access to a Sherman Firefly tank twice throughout the campaign, and unfortunately the controls for the tank feel really off. I think it has a lot to do with that 8-month development time. I think Treyarch definitely learned a lot from making this game, because when you look at the tank level that Treyarch does in World at War, it's way better. Now a person might want to know, what exactly is the most deadly weapon in all of Call of Duty 3? And in my opinion, it's the Jeep. Why are all these speed bumps speaking German? One negative that I really have to bring up when it comes to Call of Duty 3 is the lack of compatibility for ammunition that's used on the same type of weapon. A good example of this is the M1 Garand and the Browning automatic rifle. They both use the 30-06 round, but for some reason, let's say you have an M1 Garand and you walk over a bar that has full ammo. You don't pick up the rounds for the M1 Garand. The worst case of this, though, is I had a scoped Enfield rifle. The scoped Enfield rifle had no rounds left. However, there was a regular Enfield rifle on the ground. In theory, I should have been able to walk over the gun and pick up the ammo and still use the scoped rifle. For some reason, they didn't think of this when they designed the game. It's so frustrating. Let's talk about the enemies of Call of Duty 3. Oh look, a game about shooting Nazis. How fresh and original. We go to one level, we shoot Nazis. We go to the next level, you shoot some more Nazis. Go to the third level, it's Nazis and tanks. It gets really repetitive really quick. And it wouldn't be that bad if the AI for the German soldiers was good, but it's not. They're really dumb and really simple to fight. They even threw in these weird melee sequences where they kind of break the continuity of the game, where you'll be walking into a room and all of a sudden this German soldier just jumps on top of you and he tries to beat the heck out of you. And you have to do these quick time events, and they feel really off and really weird. I did not like them at all. I don't know, maybe this game would have profited from having a zombie mode. Soon. Alright, I think that's enough about the terrible enemies. Let's talk about the plot. Please be aware, there are spoilers ahead. Call of Duty 3 features 4 sub-stories woven into an overall narrative, featuring the 4 nationalities participating in the campaign following D-Day. The Canadian campaign revolves around a Canadian Highlanders platoon, which is involved in a night ambush, an attack on a German artillery battery, the capture of an industrial facility, the destruction of Flak 88 cannons in a forest, the elimination of a German mortar pool, and finally, moving to Hill 262 to assist the Polish in fending off a major German offensive. Looking at the Polish campaign, it involves an armored division moving through the French countryside, taking on various armored units, and eventually develops into the defense of Hill 262 to capture the German 7th Army in the Falaise pocket. In order to help the Polish with the defense of Hill 262, the Canadians send their radio operator, Baron, ahead to help the Polish.
You're running away from bullets, not I'm not running anywhere. I'm not afraid. Stupid Canuck.
As mentioned earlier, the Canadians manage to push through and assist the Polish with holding Hill 262, and their campaign comes to an end. The British campaign is largely about the SAS and French resistance working together to obstruct German forces behind the front lines. With their combined efforts, they rescue captured forces, destroy enemy facilities, and generally kill lots of Nazis. One thing I really didn't enjoy about the British campaign was there was one scene in particular where there's a melee sequence. It takes place on top of a large platform, and we're almost thrown off of it. However, our allies do absolutely nothing to help us. What the hell? At the end of the British campaign, one of the French resistance fighters gives her life to destroy an armored personnel carrier, which was supposed to be impactful, yet the animation looked kind of off when she dies.
Everybody do the flop!
I must say, the British campaign felt really disjointed when you compare it to the American, Canadian, and Polish campaigns, which kind of tied together in a similar plot, but the British campaign's kind of just off on its own behind enemy lines, which I didn't really like. And that brings us to the American campaign, which in my opinion has the most interesting plot, as it follows a squad which goes through easily the most character development when looking at the other campaigns. The squad features 4 main characters. There's yourself, Private Nichols, the second, Private Leroy Huxley, the third, Corporal Mike Dixon, and lastly, Sergeant Frank McCullen. As the game opens, the first level involves the Battle of St. Lo, which the game states is the bloodiest battle of the war. Maybe this is for the Americans, but in my opinion, Stalingrad was far worse. After defeating the Germans at St. Lo, the Americans move from location to location, where they make good progress on their campaign. However, as they progress, the sergeant develops PTSD and is killed by an artillery shell, which leads to Dixon becoming the new sergeant. We then meet Guzzo, a new private joining the squad. He challenges Dixon on multiple occasions, but eventually he's brought in line. As time moves on, the group develops, and they eventually become a cohesive unit. After the events of Hill 262, the Germans attempt a breakup maneuver. However, they need to go clean through the American unit to accomplish this. This leads to the final level, which takes place in Chambord. Despite their best efforts, Dixon is eventually shot and succumbs to his wounds. With no one to lead the squad, Guzzo steps up, and they eventually manage to survive the onslaught of the German forces, and the campaign comes to a bloody close. As the final cinematic rolls out, we see a similar scene to the opening, where we see Frank McCullen replaced by Guzzo and Dixon replaced by Huxley. Line for line, it's hilarious. So, in summary, I really enjoyed the game's plot, and I felt that it was satisfactory and entertaining. The characters and environments had a realistic feel to them. That is for 2006's standards. The variety of firearms is great, and I felt it aligned well with the rest of the series. And I felt that the difficulty was fair most of the time. Now, there are a lot of negatives when we look at Call of Duty 3, and I think overall, this is probably one of the worst games on PlayStation 3 when it comes to Call of Duty. Not only is the frame rate poorly optimized, but there's lots of glitches. The design choices with ammo not being shared with guns is also a weird one for me. It made no logical sense. The enemies you face in the game are also pretty repetitive, and they're also pretty one-dimensional when you look at their AI. They're quite dumb. Overall, I have to give this game a C-, and I don't recommend playing it. There's a really good reason Activision hasn't ported this over to PC. I think they know it wouldn't sell very well. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate you all watching to the end of the video. And lastly, but most importantly, I hope you all have a great day.